Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck and I get to travel the whole area, meet people. Today I met the person behind the camera and said, "Won't you be my guest?" Here he is. And you are?
Jim Holder.
Jim, welcome to Journeys and Journals.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What?
Sort of.
Behind the camera, how many years have you been operating on the film crew here?
Oh, quite a few years, ever since I got here. I moved here around 8 years ago.
And behind the camera, they pay you just as well as they pay me, right?
Yeah. If they doubled it or tripled it, it'd still be zero.
But it's a labor of love.
Right.
Now, this is not the first time you've been in front of the camera, because I've been watching Better Life television, and I watched the church program, and there you are with this trumpet, or is it a cornet?
The trumpet.
Mm-hmm. Making beautiful music. How long have you been playing trumpet?
I wanted to start playing trumpet when I was before I got into the 8th grade. And so I worked all summer before the 8th grade started, saved my money and bought a second-hand trumpet and started taking lessons. I was down at PUC at the time, Pacific Union College, in grade school. And
that's down in Napa?
Napa area, yeah, St. Helena. And by the Christmas time, I was playing in the college band. I was last chair, but still I was in the band.
I'd say that's a real latent talent there. You just didn't,
yeah,
you had the heart to do it.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
College band for an 8th grade guy.
Yeah.
You've played in lots of places.
Quite a few.
What's it like to be on stage? Do you still get butterflies, or?
Sometimes I'll get a dry mouth, and that's bad for a trumpet player. But most of the time, if I'm prepared and have practiced enough to keep my lip up, that's one of the things about a trumpet player. You've got to keep the lip up, otherwise you have trouble.
And all those whiskers don't deter the good lip?
No, if I were playing a tuba or something with a bigger mouthpiece, it would bother. But a small mouthpiece like a trumpet, I do all right.
Did anyone ever ask you to wear a red hat with a white fringe and say, "You look like Santa"? Oh,
I've played Santa Claus a couple of times in where I was working, in the hospitals. They'd say, "Oh, you're Santa Claus this year." So.
Yeah. Well, you said working in hospitals. What was the profession?
I was a radiologic technologist, which is a glorified name for X-ray tech.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'd sure like you to look at my X-rays. This tooth, I just wrong kind of X-rays.
Yeah, wrong kind. Yeah.
Oh my! I had to have a root canal. A crown replaced because underneath the gum line, that little decay had started under a crown. You never know. It just kind of worms its way in.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, they were able to save the tooth. Radiology, important part of medicine. And this was where?
I've been all over. I started out up here in the Northwest, and then I went to California, and wait a minute, no, I'm leaving out some. Quite a few years up here in the Northwest, and then I went to Brazil. The mouth of the Amazon was down there in a mission hospital for 5.5 years. And then we came home to Los Angeles for 6 years, and then we went to Angola, Africa for 3 years until the fighting started over there. Ooh. And then we escaped out and came back home. And
now you say we.
Well, that was Joanne and myself. And
now Joanne was a lovely lady. I only knew her in her wheelchair. Why don't you tell us a story about Joanne?
Well, Joanne, when she was 30 years old, was diagnosed as a diabetic. And that was before we went to Brazil. And but the doctor says, well, you're going to a hospital down there, they can take care of you, you know. So if you want to go, fine. He says, if you don't want to go, I'll sign the thing that you can't go. But she wanted to go, so we went. And she did well. She was on insulin already, and
Careful with her diet, not able.
pretty careful with the diet. Of course, like most diabetics, she was in what do they call it, denial for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I can eat that, you know. Well, sure you can eat it, but it's not going to do you any good, you know. But she did fairly well, and that was before the days when you could test the blood, you know, several times a day. And so when she'd start smelling like acidosis or something, you know, acetone on her breath, I'd make some changes in her diet or the dose and clear it up. But she was a very talented person. And
Well, now, she was musically talented.
very musically talented, among other things.
Is that
She
where
played piano very well, played marimba beautifully.
did she pick that up in South America?
No,
Oh.
she, when she was at Auburn Academy, by the way, we met at Auburn Academy.
That's in Washington State, a boarding school,
Yeah.
Christian boarding school.
Yeah, she was a year ahead of me. And so naturally she wouldn't have much to do with me because she
No.
was a senior and I was a junior, you know. Yeah, but she would skate with me.
Oh,
and
that
so
was one of the big social events.
That was the big social event, was skating, and so that was nice. But
I think this guy had eyes for.
yeah, I did. Yeah,
And years later,
the my shop teacher and also my boss I worked in the boiler room there to help make my way. And the boss asked me one day, he said, well, he says, you're getting up there. He says, you know, any girls around here you think you're going to marry? And I says, yeah, I think I'll marry Joanne. And he says, faint heart never won fair lady. He says, nice try. Well, finally I did get her. But, and we were married for almost 52 years before she passed away.
and her passing, she was so courageous.
Yeah.
She had lost.
Yeah,
ability.
she had lost 1 foot because of the diabetes. About, well, what was it? About 12 years before she passed. And then about 10 years before, she lost her eyesight.
I'd watch these two. He was pushing the wheelchair, and she had a big smile on her face, and he had one to match. It was absolutely wonderful to watch the support. And when I asked you why,
For better or for worse.
you did it.
So it got a little worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her passing, before she passed, she said something very interesting to you that I thought our audience would like to hear. She was planning ahead, wasn't she?
She was planning ahead. She knew that her days were numbered, and being totally blind and 1 foot off, well, she did have a prosthesis and she could walk some, but her kidneys were slowly shutting down. In fact, when he first got up here from California, we moved up here in '96, I guess, went to the nephrologist, and he says, well, you've got about 6 months before you have to go on dialysis. And she says, I don't want to go on dialysis. And he says, why not? She says, well, I've got a foot missing, I'm blind, and it's just not worth it. And I have hope of eternal life, you know, after death. So
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Yeah, she says, I'm ready. And he says, well, he said, if I were in the same condition, I would probably choose the same.
Oh, wow.
But he says, let's do what we can to keep you going as long as possible. So he, you know, prescribed a few things to keep everything in balance. And every time we'd go back in, about every 6 months, he'd say, I can't believe it, but you're holding your own, you know. because her kidneys were only functioning about 30% when we arrived here. And we kept that going for about 5.5 years. And only 6 months limit. And then finally they started to go. And about 6 months before she passed away, she was talking on the phone to a lady who was a family friend named Fran. And when she got off the phone, she says, you know, Fran's a good egg. I wouldn't mind if you and her got together after I'm gone. And I just...
Did you know Fran?
Oh yeah, I knew her.
She was your wife's friend.
Wife's friend, and they were family friends for 28 years. I mean, we had sung in choirs together, and she sang Fran sang in a mixed quartet with me.
Oh, so you not only play trumpet, but we'll see you up there singing?
Well, I used to sing, but I got an injury to my vocal cords, and I don't sing as well as I used to.
You were singing?
I get a tickle in my throat.
What part did you sing?
A bass.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. Well, baritone actually, but I usually sang bass in the choir. But anyway, when Joanne told me that, you know, I just kind of shrugged it off and went on about my business. And then after she passed away, and Fran and I started communicating by phone and by email and stuff.
Because of course Fran was grief-stricken also, because her good friend, her good egg,
her good, yeah, yeah. Then I thought of it, and I says to myself, man, I'm going to wait, and if we have a reception or something up here, you know, after we get married, I'm going to spring that on her. And then I thought, maybe I better not. Maybe I should tell her first. So I did. I told her. And she says, oh, she said, I've been a puddle on the floor.
Oh,
but anyway.
You know, that's so affirming. To Fran, it's so affirming to you, and it speaks so well for your wife.
Yeah.
You know, here you were widowed for quite some time.
Well, actually, I didn't stay unmarried very long. Some people thought it was I got married a little bit too soon.
Well, if you see the two of them together, folks, I don't think you'll agree.
No, I did my grieving the last 5 years because I knew that Joanne was on her way out. And so as it came to the end, we knew that that was it. And so, you know, the grieving part was fairly well over, and I knew that she was ready to go.
Now, I'm interested because like you would maybe be tucked into bed and say, you know, there's a brighter tomorrow on resurrection morning. I mean, is that how it would go? How would you encourage Fran, and how would she encourage you?
Fran or Joanne?
Sorry, Fran.
That's all right.
Forgive me.
Fran encourages me.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
an
great.
encouragement to all of us. She's incredibly.
Yeah. She's
and
great.
Where'd you bring her from?
San Diego.
We sure are glad you brought her to the Rogue Valley. Does she like it here?
She loves it. And we're trying to get her sister to move up here.
Well, that's the way families do.
Now, her sister was related to me for a while, because my father-in-law had married her sister, and they were married for about 14 months before he died of bone cancer. And he didn't know he had it when he married her. He wouldn't have married her. But so she was my mother-in-law for a while. And
if you follow that, folks, I think there's a song that we sang when we were kids.
I'm own grandpa or something.
You knew that song too.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah.
I'll hope you never sang it, because it's a...
No.
Oh.
But when I took Joanne's ashes down there to put in a niche where our daughter is also in there, because that's where she wanted to be buried. Burl, the friend's sister, told me that I could come and stay at her place. She had an extra bedroom, and I could stay the night there, you know, so I wouldn't have to get a motel. So I says, fine. Well, Fran and Burl went out to eat every day at Hometown down there, and so they invited me to go along.
Sure saves cooking.
Yeah. So we went to eat and so forth, and then we went back to the house, and Fran was there until probably 11 o'clock at night, and then we all went to bed. Well, Fran went home to her bed, which is about 10 miles away. The next night, I stayed 2 nights. The next night,
Hometown buffet. I can see this coming.
oh yeah, Hometown buffet again. And the next night, the lights were going to be off for about 10 hours where Burl's house was. And so Fran says, well, why don't everybody come down to my house? No problem. And so we all went down there, and she showed me to the room upstairs where I was going to sleep. And so out of gratitude, I gave her a little hug, and she gave a little moan, and I said, I like this, you know. So that kind of started things going.
Ooh, I think this should be played on Valentine's Day. Don't you folks think this is starting to get? So
anyhow, we started emailing. We both had email, and we started emailing back and forth, and then we started phoning a little bit in between times, and so things got interesting. I found out that she liked the same kind of music that I like.
Which is what kind of music?
Well, sacred music for one, and we don't particularly care for the rock and roll type sacred music they have nowadays. We want, real sacred music.
It speaks well.
I'm a little old, but
I was going to say what the music was when we were teenagers is the music we come to love dearly when we're in our 60s.
That's it. And so we had that in common. We like mostly the same foods.
And friends. You had friends in common. And what did your friends think of this? Did they, as they saw this developing, they were affirming? Or
actually, most of the friends didn't even know about it.
Surprise.
And so it was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people because she wasn't from here. And
best kept.
We were sort of planning on bringing her up, and have her stay a few days and then go back. And then I went down there the 13th of January, and we started, in the conversations and the emails, we had sort of devoted ourselves to each other.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, we knew that we were going to get married. And she was chiding me one time, well, you haven't asked me yet. So I called her on the phone and asked her. Of course, she said yes. But
romantic guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyhow, I went down there.
On bended knee with roses?
On the phone, not quite. But it was in my mind, yeah.
Of course. The roses came later.
The roses came later. But, what was I going to say when I got sidetracked?
Well, the smile on your face,
anyhow,
I think it's a little red even.
Yeah. Anyhow, down there on the 13th, and so we says, we're going to get married. Where should we do it? Should it be in San Diego?
Or
where
Mexico?
her friends are? Or should it be up here where my friends are? Well, that's not fair. And she said, look, I got brothers and stuff around the country, and if they come, where would they stay? How would we do it? I says, I got an idea. Why don't we just go to the Justice of the Peace? It's not the first marriage for either of us, because she lost her husband. He died earlier that same year. And why don't we just go to the Justice of the Peace and have it over with?
Well, I can't see any reason.
So the next day, we went down to the Justice of the Peace and made an appointment for the following day at 1 o'clock. And I got there on Sunday. That Monday we went and arranged it. And Tuesday we had her sister stood up for us. And I had another friend down there, Ed Ewing, that stood up for me. And his wife took pictures, a few, not very many.
Oh, good. We're going to cut one of those in here so you get to see the newlyweds.
Yeah. And then Burl, Fran's sister, took us out to lunch afterwards.
At hometown?
No, not at hometown.
Oh, okay.
We went to a real restaurant this time. So I had to wait for the food. But it was fun. And then I had to face everybody here by surprising them. And
as you said, you'd been a time of 5 years where you knew that the widowhood was inevitable.
Yeah, well, actually, it was longer than that, but the last 5 years were, we knew that it was coming, and it was,
well, now
just didn't know when.
You've lived around the world. You said South America.
Yeah.
And
Angola, Africa.
Africa, Southern Hemisphere, looking at that Southern Cross.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as neat as they tell me?
It's different, but
you look up in the sky and there's this.
You see different things, yeah. Well, actually, we were only about 3 degrees below the equator.
Hot?
Oh yeah, hot and humid all the time. And
what were you doing there?
I was working in a mission hospital.
Okay, so health has been your profession.
Yeah.
But what brings you to Southern Oregon?
Retirement.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
A number of people from San Diego have moved to beautiful Southern
the Petersons,
Oregon.
the Blakeleys,
And you knew these people down south?
Oh yeah.
And they bragged to you about, I guess they'd invested in property years before they actually got to come and.
Yeah, and I wish I would have invested then. It was a lot cheaper.
I understand.
But,
they have acres and you bet. Now the reason that we're actually here today is Volunteer for Better Life Television. What's that meant to you?
It has meant quite a bit to me, because I want to be doing something for the Lord. And this is a very small thing to do, to help other people hear about the truth.
Well, one thing that really excites me is that you're willing to be yourself, to serve, whether it's the trumpet or singing or here on Better Life Television. There's a reason, and I think you just put your finger on it. It's to God be the glory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else really matters, does it?
No. Especially when you get to be my age.
Do you want to tell us how many winters and summers that's been?
Well, I just turned 75.
Aha.
Now my brother, Dave, is about 18 months older than that, and he looks younger than I do, because his hair hasn't turned gray yet.
Well, I was...
Partially, but...
you were all of 9 years old, and you could have been bouncing me on your knee. That was... getting to be 65 plus isn't a bit bad. It's been a blessing to me. And so those of you that have that to look forward to, I just tell you, it opens up new avenues.
Yeah, once you get up in the years a bit, then there's no reason to be ashamed of it.
No.
Because if you're in good condition and can keep going. My dad died at 93 and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he said, now when I go, he says, I want to go quick. He said, I don't want to be lingering. And because my mother had a stroke when she was 74, I think, and she lingered for about 3 years. And she was just skin and bones by the time she died. It was really a shame. But my dad was in good shape and always thin, always out helping somebody, pulling weeds for him or whatever. And he went into the hospital Saturday night, and by noon Sunday he was dead.
Sometimes God gives us the desires of our heart, doesn't He?
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen that way, but you know, it sounds like the Lord has blessed you. You mentioned your daughter, and we just passed over that so quickly.
Yeah, the daughter was 32 years old, had 3 kids, and the youngest one was only 3 months old at the time. And I went in to wake. She separated from her husband because her husband wanted her to abort the last baby, and she says, "No way." She came to live with us. I went in to wake her up one morning, and she was dead. She had died of a seizure that stopped her heart.
You know,
And
it's a heartbreaking thing that we have in common. Our daughter was just 5 when she died here, and I know that this touches a lot of people. They've lost a baby, they've outlived their kids. But God has a plan.
yeah,
You know, I
again,
don't
she
know
was ready.
those tiny babies, they found a new home, that's someone to love and
Yeah.
care
She had been
for.
giving Bible studies to a lady who that following Sabbath was baptized, and she was ready.
Well, all I can do is say thank you very much for being my guest, and I hope everybody got a smile about Santa here with a trumpet. If you watch Better Life Television, you'll be seeing this guy
Yeah, from time to time.
playing his trumpet.
Accompanied by Fran on the piano.
Absolutely.
She had almost forgotten that she could play the piano,
and she plays
and
like
she didn't have one for 13 years. And then when she started playing mine, I should say, and then and that wasn't good enough, so we got her a grand piano.
oh, goody. Well, she plays in a grand style, and we hope that you'll be seeing her on Better Life Television from time to time. Thank you so much for being my guest.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, folks, for tuning in to Journeys and Journals. You never know the path that we're going to follow next, all the way to Better Life Television and the state of Jefferson. Welcome to our world.